it's possible to shoot incredible motorsport images without having a 5,000 euro kit. Let me tell you about my kit. I used to shoot motorsport events as a spectator and am able to shoot images like this. So first of all, my camera of choice is my trusty old Fujifilm X-T4, which isn't the newest model, doesn't have the best autofocus, but if you set it up right, you can create incredible images with it. And the autofocus is still useful, but actually quite a lot of times I use the manual focus. So the camera actually has quite a good burst rate of 15 images per second when you're using the mechanical shutter. You can boost it up to 30 frames a second if you only use the electronic shutter, but you usually don't want to do that, especially in motorsport, because that introduces the rolling shutter effect. So I and probably most people as well shoot RAW plus JPEG, and when I'm doing that, one burst can get up to 34 images. The downtime in between the burst isn't that great, but I usually never really get to that. If you actually shoot 34 images in one burst, you will have a downtime of about 30 seconds. But I really never let my camera get to that point because I usually shoot in small bursts of like 5 to 10 images. So if there's no way around for you that you need a higher number of images in one burst, for example like a race start where there's a whole lot of action going on because of all the cars are just packed up, you can choose to only shoot in JPEG. I think you'll be able to shoot 110 images if you're shooting in 15 FPS, mechanical shutter of course. If you choose to shoot 10 FPS, you can get up to 164 in one burst. Editing JPEGs isn't the same as editing a RAW file because it just doesn't have that much information, so you can't get that much out of this picture. So I almost never do that. Now let's get to my lens of choice, which is the Fujifilm 70-300. It basically covers it all. I usually shoot in between 70 and 200 millimeters though. So the image quality is actually very good for the money you pay for this lens, especially with this entire range, but the sweet spot of the camera seems to be in between 70 and 200 millimeters. From 200 millimeter upwards, the camera seems to be a little softer, which isn't that noticeable if you just view the image like this, but if you compare, let's say, a 100 millimeter shot with a 300 millimeter shot, you will be able to tell the difference. Of course, as the Fujifilm X system is a crop sensor camera system, the actual full frame converted range of this lens is 105 to 450 millimeters, so you got quite a lot of reach there. And occasionally I will also take my 16 to 80 millimeter f4 Fujifilm lens. Alright, with the camera and lens out of the way, let's talk about the accessories I usually take to these motorsporting events. When people think of motorsport photography, I think most people think about huge lenses on these cameras that require sturdy and huge tripods or monopods for that sake, but the setup I'm using couldn't be further from that. I actually don't require a tripod or a monopod at all. I do, however, like to bring my L bracket with one of the sides taken off, so I just have a deeper grip, which is just a bit better to hold when I do have my camera with the telephoto lens on there the entire time. And lastly, another accessory that I usually take is my wrist strap, which I almost always have on the camera and obviously on my wrist. It just gives me that little peace of mind when I'm holding my camera in an awkward angle and I'm thinking about if I might drop it or not, and with a wrist strap that's not a problem anymore. So with the accessories out of the way, let's get to how I transport my camera to and from and while I'm there. And I have actually never had problems accessing venue with my camera gear, but I have heard from a couple of people that they actually were denied access because they're like professional looking cameras. Basically means having big and bulky full frame cameras with huge telephoto lenses in their bags. Of course I want to avoid that, and it's actually pretty easy with the kit I usually bring. As I told you, it's not a huge kit, but I still don't want to take my huge Shimoda Action X50 backpack, which basically screams like, hey, look at me, I have all my photography gear with me. So what I usually do is I just bring my Peak Design everyday sling 3-liter bag, and that can basically fit all the items I'm taking. So as mentioned, all the items meaning my Fujifilm X-T4 with the L bracket on, my 70 to 300 millimeter telephoto lens, and as I said, the 16 to 80 millimeter I occasionally bring, but honestly that's kind of a snug fit in the camera, so yeah, only sometimes. So let's get to the important part of how much this kit costs so you can start your motorsport photography journey. The Fujifilm X-T4 you can buy in a used condition on the internet for around 1,200, 1,250 euros. The 70 to 300 millimeter is a bit rarer, but you can still sometimes find it on the internet, and you'll pay around 750 euros for it in a used condition. And lastly, the L bracket, wrist strap and Peak Design bag is around 150 euros. So as a total, if you buy that kit, you will be at around 2,150 euros. So of course, this is still not a cheap kit by any means, but it is is far off from the price that a lot of motorsport photographers pay for their kit. Obviously there's also quality difference, but that's just the price you pay or the price you don't pay. But it can still get you very far in your motorsport photography journey. And lastly, just something I wanted to mention, the reason I do my motorsport photography isn't because I want to sell prints online or anything like that. I just really enjoy motorsport and Formula 1 in particular, and as photography is a big part of my life as well, I just really like combining those two to be able to create my own images that I can hang on my walls and look at all day. And if you're wondering why I chose Fujifilm in the first place over other competitors, check out this video where I explain my choice.